Hello, people of God. I want to share with you some information that is so compelling that it's actually scary related to the rapture. And I have been hesitant to make this video because of all this information. If you remember, I have been hospitalized, and for a full week, I was feeling terribly bad. And the only purpose to that, I believe it was to go to the hospital and to get that wristband with that number 7778, which the Lord has shown me in those days that the biblical prophecy related to the rapture of pray ye that your flight is not in winter nor in the Sabbath day had to do with the 70 years. 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days was exactly until the winter solstice, which is impossible to be a coincidence. Now, I believe that the Lord took me to the hospital only with the purpose of giving me that wristband with that number, because I never suffered any of that before in my life and never after. And even there, they told me I had nothing. They checked my ears, it was not vertigo. So they say I was okay. Finally, I came back, and I've been, holding this video because it's incredible, the information, and I don't want to give false hopes to anybody. But 777 is 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days until the 21st of December. And the 22nd, which is the full moon, will be 7778, the 8th day. 777 until the winter solstice, 7778 until the 22nd. I realized that it's the 14th of the month of Tevet, the 10th Hebrew month. In the 14th of the month, we left Egypt. And in the 14th of the month, Jesus was crucified. So I was wondering, do we leave Egypt? Do we leave this world in the 14th of the month? And do we die to the flesh in the 14th of the month? Yet to see. It is a full moon, and I know that the Bible needs to have a relation to the moon status. The condition cannot be just any moon. I don't believe that we can live in just any moon, because the biblical patterns are either full moon, new moon, as to the third day after the full moon, or the new moon, and that's it. Everything happened in the full moon or in the third day of the full moon, or in the new moon or in the third day of the new moon. So I don't see us going up in just any other moon. That's why I do not approve the 30 or the 31st of December. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. When I checked that 7778 is exactly the 22nd of the month, the full moon, then the Lord had me check the amount of days, because the Bible says in Psalm 90, verse 10, that teaches how to number our days, that we may bring wisdom to the heart. And when I checked the amount of days, it was 222 days until the 22nd of December, the full moon. And if you remember, the Lord had given me a few months ago a message when I woke up, and I looked to the phone, and it was 222, and the Lord told me, there is your answer. And I was, okay, wow, this is incredible. 222 matches the 7778, 70 years, 7 months, 7 days, and the 8th day on the 22nd, and it's also 222 days. So I was like, okay, this is really incredible. Now, 3 days later, it will be the Christmas, the 25th of December, and the Antichrist, Barack Obama, said, and I will win the war on Christmas. I believe this to be true. He will not win the war in New Year's Eve. He will win the war on Christmas, meaning we need to leave 3 days earlier, most likely to be this way. As I am meditating and checking all this, I realized that the book of Revelation has 22 chapters. And I was wondering, is that the last chapter of the church on earth, the last day, a 22? Because chapter 22 has 21 verses, which matches the 7778, 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days, on the 21st of December, on 21, and then the next day, the 22nd. So looking it up backwards, the 22nd chapter of Revelation, I was wondering, is it actually pointing to our last day on earth, the last chapter of the church on earth? And I did something. The Lord put in my mind, okay, so go and do this. The book of Revelation is the 27th book of the Bible in the New Testament. Go and check which one is the 27th book of the Bible in the Old Testament. And let's see if there is a parallel. And when I went and checked, the 27th book of the Old Testament is the book of Daniel, which has 12 chapters, 12, 22. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. Let me see. Because the book of Daniel in chapter 12 speaks about the rapture, the resurrection of the dead. It is no coincidence. I say, okay, wait a minute here. If the book of Daniel is set up as a year in months, then in chapter 5, there must be something related to the fulfillment of the 70 years. And yes, it is. When I went to chapter 5, I found that that was the day that Belshazzar got the vision of the hand writing in the wall, mene, tekel, upharsin, and Daniel came and gave the interpretation. That same night, he got conquered and he was slain by Darius. And that was the fulfillment of the 70 years, because history records that Nebuchadnezzar reigned for 45 years and Evil-Marduk reigned for 23 years and Belshazzar reigned for 2 years. That's the exact amount of 70 years. After that is when they received their freedom. King Darius was under King Cyrus. He actually married one of the daughters. And it is amazing that when I checked that, in chapter 5, matching a month of the year, May, matching the month of May, where Israel was fulfilling the 70 years since May 14th, 1948. So in chapter 5, we have a 70-year fulfillment of the book of Daniel. And then in chapter 12, we have Daniel talking about the resurrection of the dead and the rapture. All the words that he says there in chapter 12 are pretty much related to the rapture of the church. So I was wondering, well, if the 27th book of the Old Testament is pointing the month and the 27th book of the New Testament is pointing the day, then 1222 matches 778 and also 222 days. And that was mind-blowing to me. So I said, wait a minute, let me check a little bit more, because it is known that the dividing chapter of the Bible, it is in the book of Psalms, and it is Psalm 117. And I said, well, if Psalm 117 divided the Bible, then it's more likely to divide time. And so what happened in 2017? Well, after 3,000 years, Jerusalem was called the capital of Israel on December the 6th, 2017 by Donald Trump. Once again. And I was like, okay, that does cut it. So let's see what else. If that happened in 2017, then Psalm 118 must give a word related to the rapture. And in verse 22 of Psalm 118, as if it was 2018, it says, the stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. And I was like, what? And it keeps saying, this is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. In verse 24, this is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Which day? The day that the stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. Now, Jesus had become the headstone of the corners when he came down and died for us on the cross, but not for them, because they do not know him. But the day of the rapture, they will know him. They will know that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. And that day that the Lord has made, the stone which the builders refused will become the headstone of the corner. And in verse 24 it says clearly, this is the day. This is the only verse in the Bible that says, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Well, the church will rejoice and be glad in it only in the day of the rapture, with true joy and true gladness. It is so clear. Verse 22nd, pointing to the 22nd again, the stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. And in verse 24, this is the day which the Lord has made. Now, I do not know if this is pointing to the 22nd as the rapture day, or only pointing to the 22nd as that full moon, that first full moon of the winter, that it happens to be also a Sabbath, which is no coincidence whatsoever. It says, pray ye that your flight is not in winter nor in the Sabbath day. It's more likely to be that day, but it could be all the way up to Christmas. Now, I believe it could be that very day. And one more thing I did check, it was another parallel that I found, the book of Psalms being the book that divides the Bible in chapter 117. I said, well, what number of book is the Psalms? The book of Psalms is the 19th book of the Old Testament. So I went and checked which is the 19th book of the New Testament, and it is the book of Hebrews. 19th, does that mean, and is it pointing that the Lord will deal with the Hebrews, the Lord will deal with Israel in 2019? Certainly. Psalm 119 is the longest psalm in the Bible. It is known that number 9 is directly linked to judgment of the Lord. So we are more likely to live in this winter solstice first Sabbath, and that is just amazing. So, people of God, what are the odds that the 19th book of the Bible contains the dividing chapter of the Bible and also the longest chapter of the Bible? And that book is the 19th book, with the longest chapter of the Bible being the 119th. And that the 19th book of the New Testament, it's also the book of Hebrews. And we know in the Great Tribulation, the Lord is going to deal with the Hebrews. The Lord is going to deal with Israel. What are the odds that the 27th book of the Bible matches in a parallel the 27th book of the New Testament? They both talk about the fourth beast, the Antichrist kingdom, the 10 kings that he's going to set up, the different details of the Antichrist, and they both talk also about the rapture of the church. In the book of Daniel, chapter 12, we can clearly see how the Lord talks about the resurrection of the dead. We know that the dead in Christ shall rise first, and then us who are alive. And I want to read it real quick because it is amazing. And it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, talking about the great tribulation in chapter 12. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, talking about the Great Tribulation. It is clear that he's talking about the Great Tribulation, talking about a time of trouble, talking about the Great Tribulation, such as never was since there was a nation. And it says, right at that time, that many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. I mean, that is the rapture. We could never shine as the firmament and as the stars unless we be raptured. So it tells you right there that that is the end time. And what are the odds that the 27th book of the Old Testament matches in a parallel the 27th book of the New Testament? They both talk about the same. Daniel is the end time prophet that speak about in detail of the kingdom of the Antichrist, the 10 kings that he's going to set up, that he will not pay attention to the love of women, the different details that he offers. And also in the 5th chapter of the book of Daniel, there is the fulfillment of the 70 years when the captivity of Babylon was awaiting for the 70th year that they could be set free. And right when the writing on the wall, Belshazzar got the interpretation by the prophet Daniel, and in that same night he was slain, and freedom came to the Jews. That was the 70th year. And it is an amazing parallel. And these details that I believe they have been encoded in plain sight. And now, by the grace of God, we can see these details. And I believe 2019 is the beginning of the Great Tribulation. And as the year ends in this December, on the first full moon of winter, right after the fulfillment of 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days to winter solstice, if we agree, because of the Hebrew days is between the two afternoons from 6 o'clock to 6 o'clock, or 6:30 to 6:30, it could be that the winter solstice, because it needs the full moon, is actually from the 21st to the 22nd. So it is actually the same thing. And, you know, I received this number in a wristband. The Lord passed me through that, I believe, only to get that number. And He had previously given me the 222, and it matches. Everything matches. Now, I believe this is a clear sign that we are living now. If we don't live now, I will consider then the 7th day of the 11th month for 7/11, and that will happen in January with the new moon. Other than that, I will simply have no clue. I know we could not get to May 14th, 2019, but I believe that we are to live this December. Until next time, God bless you all. Shalom.